The pandemic is far from over. See what I mean? Also, it's possible that we're not using magic powers so much as looking at data. Anywho, the heck are we talking about here, huh? What's going on? COVID is over, right? It's certainly not a pandemic anymore, like we say in our title, and most Americans agree that COVID is over. And to be fair and balanced and a little salty to taste, COVID rates are largely way down. They seem to spike specifically during the winter, which scans, but those spikes aren't nearly as large as the Omicron wave back in old 2022. To be exact-ish, there were about 20,000 weekly hospitalizations in September of 2023. Of course, if you're immunocompromised, that's still too many people. But for most Americans, it don't matter to them. More like immunocompromised, they say. I'm so sorry I said that. It's the Americans are saying that. The other Americans, not me. Only 7% of Americans are, quote, very worried about getting COVID. And only 17% of eligible people actually got the latest vaccine. That last bit is a little concerning on account of the fact that older Americans really should be vaccinated regularly, but simply aren't. So it's safe to assume that there will be another spike this year, perhaps during a time when people are all out going to something, some kind of event that's close to winter where people gather really close to each other. An orgy? Am I thinking of an orgy again? I hope I'm not. Still, the possibility of COVID returning in some big, terrifying way is slim. So that's good. Segment over. No, it's not over. Not even like a da-da-da-da, like one of the, we haven't done those in a while. Hell yeah, welcome back. So if you look at the title of this segment again, you might notice that we didn't say COVID specifically. We tricked you good. You look like fucking asshole. We are pointing and laughing. Because I don't know if you know this, but COVID isn't the only virus that will exist. There will be other bigger and probably worse pandemics that we will have to deal with. And see, I'm not sure if you recall this, but something very ridiculous happened during COVID. A certain political party, when faced with an apolitical pandemic, decided to fight on the side of the virus. You remember that? When we learned that a huge portion of America apparently had oppositional defiant disorder to the point that they were willing to die instead of take basic and common sense measures to protect themselves and others from COVID. And even now are still putting out headlines absolutely terrified of having to put something over the lower half of their face. The ultimate sacrifice! Boy, that's really, really stupid. Like, when history looks back at that, it's going to be very embarrassing and baffling, especially since, after all of that, one of the uniting actions that state governments took from that ordeal, the more than 1 million deaths, was to pass a series of laws designed to stop health agencies from enacting mandates that would slow the next pandemic. No shit, that's a thing that happened. Currently, about 30 states have made it harder for health officials to issue basic protections like mask mandates and distancing. In other words, lawmakers saw a massive global pandemic that killed countless and said, you know what? The real problem is having to wear those pesky masks. And then, for the first time ever, they actually rushed through laws as if it were a life and death scenario, choosing to support death. It is beyond confusing to see politicians land on the side of the virus that killed everyone. But here we are, beyond confused. And so it would perhaps be nice to see someone rooting for the side that keeps people alive, especially now that we just saw the biggest wave since Omicron. Unfortunately, the White House has been silent on the issue. I wonder if there's a reason they would just let people die instead of making a politically unpopular health measure. Is there like some kind of political pageant happening soon? And while it's unlikely that we can issue mask mandates without a civil war, apparently, there are things that could be done right now to at least help. Some suggestions from this article by the New Republic include really obvious things, like renovating public spaces to have HEPA air filters, normalizing the use of masks in specific places, promoting regular vaccinations and making them easy to get, and pushing airlines to waive cancellation fees during COVID spikes. You'll notice none of that involves a mandate or forcing anything. Not that we're gonna do that, or anything. About anything. Because even if COVID numbers continue to go down and vanish, heck, even if we never get another pandemic again, which we will, but even if we didn't, COVID still isn't done with us.
Millions of Americans are suffering with long COVID, and it's unclear why. Doctors say it can happen to anyone, and it can be debilitating.
Back in 2022, the CDC reported that about 18 million American adults have or had long COVID. That's about 6.9% of adults. Not nice. Out of that group, people with symptoms were more likely to be unemployed than people without. And so it's safe to say that roughly 2 to 4 million Americans can't work due to long COVID. For reference, that's more than the entire state of Connecticut. And don't you act like you don't care about Connecticut, okay? That's where the WWE headquarters are. Certainly you want most of WWE to be able to work, right? Right? My point here is that long COVID is going to be a problem for a lot of people, possibly for the rest of their lives. So you'd think that a good country run by non-dildos would be able to easily take care of that. Except this country, that is in fact run by yes dildos, really likes to pretend things that are problems aren't problems, and even make policies based around the power of positive thinking. And so as of April 2023, Joe Biden signed a declaration that COVID was no longer a national health emergency. He also flat out said that, quote, the pandemic is over in September of 2022. But with that official declaration, a bunch of extra funds and benefits were halted, pushing tons of citizens out of Medicaid and effectively leaving America to twist in the wind. Because it's over, you see. Or to be more accurate, it's now easy to ignore. And we can go back to a system where absolutely no new protections are put in place for people struggling to survive. All safety measures are reversed, and we can all be slammed just as hard by the next pandemic. Be it COVID or something new and exciting. Maybe we'll get it from worms. We could call it worm germ, and I can finally offload all those custom hats I made while drunk. Oh, that's so exciting. Get your worm germ hats. Except next time around, health officials won't be able to issue mask mandates in a bunch of states. Long live the worm germ, I guess. Glad we learned that lesson. Okay, well, I'm upset, and oftentimes I'll express that I'm upset and need a joyful story to cheer me up before we ironically cut to an even worse story. So maybe if I ask for a worse story, I'll get a good one. Okay, give me a worse story, please. Thank you. A bunch of anti-genocide voices will be censored. Well, I guess we learned something about expectations. So listen here. We keep saying that we're going to cover Palestine soon. It's like a mantra where every time we bring it up, we hint at this larger future episode. And it might seem like we're stalling because we're high and we slept in. But as we've said before, we like to take our time instead of trying to be the first to cover something. We also like to sleep in. But as we're filming this episode, our writers are working on that script next, which will be edited, then given to a fact checker before being printed out and fed to the magic news donkey that, after 24 hours, poops it out in the form of a moist pellet. That pellet is then force-fed to me. I go catatonic for exactly 76 minutes, and then when I wake up, I start talking and we film it. If you're in the industry, you know all of this. What I'm getting at is that I understand the frustration felt when a genocide is happening and people are disgustingly silent about it. And I understand that frustration and rage because I watch the news. Well, I eat the news in pellet form, but the fugue state is very emotional. And like you, I've noticed the pattern of mainstream media companies systematically downplaying the reality of a genocide happening right freaking now. As I mentioned with COVID, this country is very fond of pretending that everything is fine and there's no need to make waves. And so it's only natural to America that we're gonna see a lot of people losing their jobs for making waves against this whole genocide dilly. I know this because it's already happened in the past and also recently, which is technically also in the past.
But there are also people that your government has killed. You accept that, right? You've killed children, or do you deny that?
No, I do not. I do not. First of all, you don't know how those people died, those children.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we don't want to see a single child killed.
Okay, here's my question for you, Mark. You say, I agree with you. I agree with you. We shouldn't blindly believe anything Hamas says. But why should we believe what your government says either? Your military spokesman on Monday pointed to an Arabic document in the basement of a Gaza hospital and claimed it was a Guardian list on which every terrorist writes his name. But that was false. It was just a calendar with the days of the week on it. Your colleague in the Prime Minister's office